Olivia Bennett gripped the hospital bed rails as another contraction ripped through her body. At 35 weeks pregnant and alone in Boston Memorial's luxury birthing suite, this wasn't how she'd imagined bringing her child into the world. Rain lashed against floor-to-ceiling windows, the stormy night mirroring the turmoil within her. "Breathe through it," encouraged Nurse Sarah, checking monitors displaying Olivia's vitals. "Dr. Pearson is handling an emergency C-section. The on-call specialist will be here shortly." Olivia nodded weakly, her auburn hair dampened with sweat. 8 months ago, her life had been picture-perfect engaged to Marcus Stone, rising star, architect with a growing reputation for innovative, sustainable luxury buildings. Then came the morning she found his note. "I'm not ready for this responsibility. I'm sorry. No explanation, no discussion." 3 years together, erased with a single sentence. "Your blood pressure's elevated," Sarah noted with concern. "I've paged Dr. Reed. He just returned from establishing a maternal health clinic in Switzerland, one of our finest." The name struck Olivia like lightning. Reed. It couldn't be. Boston was a sprawling metropolis with countless doctors. Life couldn't possibly be this cruelly coincidental. 5 years had passed since medical school, since she'd walked away from James Reed to pursue her dreams as a fashion designer in New York. 5 years since she'd looked into those intense gray eyes and told him their paths were diverging. Before she could process this possibility, the door opened, and a tall figure in navy scrubs entered, eyes focused on her chart. "Ms. Bennett, I'm Dr. Reed. I understand you're—" The words died as he looked up, recognition flashing across his face. "James," Olivia whispered, suddenly conscious of her disheveled appearance, her vulnerable state. For a moment, neither spoke. The beeping monitors faded to background noise as their shared history filled the room like a physical presence. James recovered first, his expression shifting to professional detachment with practiced ease. "Olivia, I didn't know you were back." "In Boston." 6 months, she managed before another contraction seized her. This one stronger, longer, stealing her breath as she cried out. Instantly, James was beside her, doctor mode engaged. "Deep breaths, that's it." His voice was steady, his hands confident as he examined her. The platinum Patek Philippe on his wrist caught the light, a far cry from the plastic Timex he'd worn during their sleepless nights of medical school. "You're progressing quickly for a first delivery," he informed her, professional mask firmly in place. "Is the father on his way?" Olivia closed her eyes, shame washing over her. "He's not in the picture." Something flickered across James's face, surprise. Perhaps judgment before his clinical expression returned. "I see. Is there someone we should call?" "My sister's trying to get here from Chicago, but with the storm... Olivia trailed off as another contraction built. When it passed, she found James studying her with an intensity that made her heart race in a way unrelated to labor. "I'll be your doctor today," he said finally, "unless you prefer someone else." Despite everything, she knew James was brilliant. His hands had always been steady, his mind sharp. "No," she whispered, "you're here. That's what matters now." The next 2 hours passed in a blur of increasing pain. James returned regularly, his manner professional but gentle. He never mentioned their past, focusing entirely on the delivery. Yet Olivia caught him watching her, sometimes with an expression she couldn't decipher. "We're close now," he announced after checking her again. "The baby's in position. You'll be pushing soon." As if on cue, Olivia felt an overwhelming pressure. I think it's happening now." The room transformed into organized chaos. Nurses positioned her legs while James prepared. Through the haze of pain, Olivia heard his calm voice guiding her. On the next contraction, push down. "That's it. You're doing great." As she bore down with all her strength, a new fear gripped her. Something's wrong. I can feel it, she gasped between pushes. James's eyes met hers, serious but steady. The baby's heart rate is dropping slightly with contractions. It's not uncommon, but I need you to push effectively. We might need assistance. The next contraction, built like a tidal wave. As Olivia pushed, monitors began to alarm. James remained calm, but his movements became urgent. The cord might be compressed. One more big push, Olivia. Then we may need vacuum assistance. Summoning every ounce of strength, Olivia pushed as the contraction peaked. Through tears, she saw James's expression change to concern as he watched the monitor. Heart rate still. Dropping. We need to get this baby out now. As controlled emergency procedures activated around her, Olivia locked eyes with James. In that moment, their shared past vanished. He wasn't her ex-boyfriend. He was the doctor who held her babies. Life in his hands. Trust me, he said quietly, just for her to hear. I won't let anything happen to either of you. And despite everything, Olivia did trust him completely. One final push, James commanded, his voice cutting through her exhaustion as he positioned the vacuum extractor. With a primal cry, Olivia summoned her remaining strength. The pain transcended all thought, all memory. There was only this moment, this struggle to bring her child safely into the world. That's it. I can see the head dark hair like yours, James encouraged. His focus absolute dot with one final heroic effort. Olivia felt her baby leaving her body. A moment of suspended silence followed. Then the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard filled the room. The indignant wail of her newborn, taking its first breath. It's a boy, James announced, emotion briefly cracking his professional demeanor. A beautiful, perfect little boy. Tears streamed down Olivia's face as nurses quickly cleaned her son and placed the tiny bundle on her chest. Through blurred vision, she took in his reddened face, shock of dark hair, impossibly small fingers, curled into fists. Hello, little one, she whispered, overwhelmed by love so intense it felt transcendent. I'm your mom. James was still working efficiently, delivering the placenta and checking for tears, but Olivia barely noticed. Her entire world had narrowed to this 7-pound miracle breathing against her skin. He's perfectly healthy, Sarah said, adjusting the blanket. What's his name? The question brought Olivia back to reality. She and Marcus had never finalized a name. Noah, she said, the name coming to her suddenly. Noah James Bennett. From the foot of the bed, James glanced up sharply. Something flickered. In his eyes recognition dot as post-birth procedures continued. Olivia couldn't help noticing how different James looked now. Gone was the passionate, sometimes reckless medical student she'd known. This James moved with confidence and authority. The nurses deferred to him without question, and even during the near emergency, he'd maintained perfect control. Once mother and baby were stabilized, the room gradually emptied until only James remained, updating her chart. Thank you, Olivia, said, breaking the silence, for everything. James looked up, his professional mask softening slightly. I was just doing my job. We both know that's not entirely true. She shifted Noah to her other arm, wincing slightly. Of all the hospitals in Boston, all the doctors on call, ... This can't be coincidence. A small smile played at his lips. Actually, it is. I'm only here for 6 months while the hospital implements my patient management system. Today was my first shift on maternity. I saw you in Forbes last year, she said, the billionaire doctor. You did it, James. Everything we talked about helping mothers globally, revolutionizing healthcare. Not everything, he replied, his gaze steady. The unspoken truth hung between them. They'd planned to do it together. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. James handed it to her, and she saw her sister's name. Emma? Yes, he's here. Noah James. She listened, then her face fell. All flights canceled? I understand. It's not your fault. Hanging up, she fought back tears. Emma can't get a flight. Until tomorrow at earliest. The storm has shut down most airports. James frowned. You were planning to stay with her? Olivia nodded. Just until I get on my feet. My condo had electrical issues. That's partly why I moved back to Boston. She stroked Noah's cheek. I never expected Marcus to leave when I told him I was pregnant. She hadn't meant to share so much, but exhaustion had lowered her defenses. To her surprise, James pulled a chair beside her bed. What happened with your design career? Last I heard, you had that boutique in Soho. The question stung, reminding her of all she'd sacrificed and ultimately lost. I did, for 3 years. Then the pandemic hit. Being pregnant didn't help when I was trying to rebuild. She sighed. I've been doing freelance work, but with Noah coming. James was silent, his expression thoughtful. And Marcus is completely out of the picture? Completely. His parents told me he moved to Seattle, changed his number. She met his gaze directly. I've made peace with it. Noah and I will be fine on our own. Something changed in James's expression, determination, perhaps, or decision. You should rest. I'll check on you both later. After he left, Olivia dozed fitfully, waking whenever Noah stirred. By evening, she'd convinced herself that James had passed her case to another doctor, unwilling to deal with the complications of their shared past. Around 8, as she attempted to eat the bland hospital dinner one-handed while cradling Noah, there was a knock. Expecting a nurse, she called, "Come in." Instead, James entered, now dressed in charcoal slacks and a cashmere sweater. He carried a takeout bag that filled the room with the aroma of Italian food. I thought you might appreciate real food, he said, setting the bag on her tray. It's from Antonio's. Still your favorite? Olivia stared at him, stunned that he remembered. Antonio's had been their special place during medical school, a tiny family-owned restaurant where they'd celebrated every milestone. You didn't have to do that, Olivia said, even as her stomach growled at the scent of garlic and herbs. I know. James began unpacking containers of pasta, salad, and warm bread. Consider it a birthday present for Noah. As he arranged the meal, Olivia noticed he seemed almost nervous, a stark contrast to his clinical confidence earlier. James, why are you really here? He paused, then met her gaze directly. I've been thinking about your situation. You need somewhere to stay after discharge, somewhere safe for Noah. He took a deep breath. I have a guest house on my estate in Brookline. It's fully furnished, separate from the main house. You and Noah could stay until you find something else. Olivia's mouth fell open. You can't be serious. I am. His expression was earnest now, reminiscent of the James she'd known years ago. It's sitting empty, and you need a place. It makes sense. James, we haven't spoken in 5 years. The last time we saw each other, I broke your heart. Now you want me and my newborn to move into your guest house? Something flickered in his eyes, pain, perhaps, or memory. Because once upon a time, you were the most important person in my life. Because I know what it's like to be alone when you need someone most. He glanced at Noah. And because no child should start their life in a hotel room while their mother struggles. His sincerity was unmistakable, but Olivia hesitated. What would people think? Since when did you care what people thought? The corner of his mouth lifted in a half-smile. Besides, it's just a temporary arrangement between old friends. The word friends hung in the air between them. I'd need to contribute somehow, she insisted. Pay rent, at least. If you insist, James shrugged. Or you could help with the foundation's new maternal fashion line, comfortable, practical. clothing for new mothers in developing countries. We need a designer who understands both fashion and medical needs. Olivia stared at him. You remembered that it was your dream project in our senior year? James smiled fully now. Of course, I did. That night, as Noah slept in the bassinet beside her, Olivia found herself unable to sleep, her mind racing. James's offer was practical, generous, and terrifying. Being near him again, living on his property, the emotions she'd buried years ago were already stirring. The following morning, James arrived during rounds, his manner once again professional as he examined both her and Noah. Everything looks good, he announced. You'll be discharged tomorrow if all continues well. As he turned to leave, Olivia called out, James, wait. When he turned back, she took a deep breath. I've thought about your offer. We'll stay in your guest house temporarily, and I'd like to hear more about the Foundation's project. Something that looked like happiness flashed across his face before he composed himself. Good. I'll make the arrangements. 2 days later, as James drove them to his Brookline estate, Olivia gasped when they passed through wrought iron gates and a magnificent colonial-style mansion came into view. Set on manicured grounds with ancient oak trees, it was even more impressive than she'd imagined. Home sweet home, James said quietly as they approached a charming 2-story guest house with its own garden, for as long as you need it. As he helped her inside with Noah and her few belongings, Olivia felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Hope. 3 months passed in a blur of midnight feedings, baby smiles, and unexpected contentment. The guest house became a true home, filled with Noah's toys and Olivia's sketches for the Foundation's maternal fashion line. What had begun as a temporary arrangement gradually transformed into something neither of them had dared name. James visited daily, ostensibly to check on Noah's development, but the lengthy conversations that followed told a different story. They carefully rebuilt their friendship, navigating around old wounds and new circumstances. One evening, as autumn painted the estate in brilliant colors, James invited Olivia to dinner at the main house. Noah was sleeping peacefully in the nursery they'd set up in James's home office, monitored by his state-of-the-art baby system. I've been meaning to ask, James said, as they lingered over dessert on his terrace, the garden illuminated by subtle landscape lighting. The Foundation's Global Summit is next month in Geneva. Would you consider presenting your designs personally? The board was impressed with your prototypes. Olivia hesitated. What about Noah? He'd come with us, of course. James paused, suddenly looking uncertain. That is, if you're comfortable traveling together. The implication hung in the air between them. James, Olivia set down her wine glass. We need to talk about what's happening here. He met her gaze steadily. What do you think is happening? I think we're pretending this is still temporary, that we're just friends and colleagues. She took a deep breath. But it feels like more, and it has since the day Noah was born. James was silent for a long moment, the flickering candles reflecting in his eyes. When you walked away 5 years ago, I convinced myself it was for the best. We wanted different things. He leaned forward. But seeing you again, meeting Noah, it's made me question everything. I've changed, Olivia admitted. My priorities are different now. So have I. James reached across the table, his fingers gently touching hers. Maybe the timing wasn't right before. Maybe we needed to become these versions of ourselves first. The garden around them seemed to hold its breath as James continued. I don't want you to stay in the guest house anymore, Olivia. At her startled expression, he quickly added, I want you and Noah here, in this house. With me, not as guests, or friends or colleagues, but as family. Tears gathered in Olivia's eyes. Are you sure? Noah isn't. Noah is a blessing, James interrupted firmly. I've fallen in love with him just as I've fallen in love with you all over again. Or maybe I never stopped. A baby's cry through the monitor interrupted the moment. Both rose immediately, but James gently touched Olivia's arm. "Let me," he said. "I want to." Watching him walk away to comfort her son, Olivia felt her heart expand with possibilities she'd thought forever lost. Sometimes life's greatest gifts arrived in unexpected ways, through painful endings that became beautiful beginnings. When James returned minutes later with a sleepy Noah against his shoulder, Olivia knew with absolute certainty what her answer would be. "Yes," she said simply. "To Geneva, to this house, to everything." James's smile illuminated his face as he sat beside her, cradling Noah between them. "I always believed some paths were meant to cross more than once," he whispered. "Ours just needed a detour to find its way back." As they sat together under the stars, Olivia realized that sometimes the most perfect family isn't the one you plan for. It's the one life surprises you with when you least expect it.